Why, hello there, Jacob, and welcome to Week 10 of the NFL season. Yeah, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. We're already into Week 10, if you can believe it. And it's already been basically a season and a half at this point, even though we're only at the halfway point of the season. But again, that's neither here nor there. Moving on. So, with all that being said, the Minnesota Vikings start their second half of the season at home against Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. Boy, this is going to be a tough, a physical, a very interesting game to say the least. Why is that, ladies and gentlemen? Because, well, this is basically two teams who are fighting for their lives in the playoff hunt. I mean, basically, the Ravens have been fighting for their playoff lives for the better part of the last couple of weeks here, especially when they started off, I think, 1-5, and they are now 3-5 going into Minnesota. And Minnesota, fresh off of their very, very, very big season-defining win against the Lions in Detroit, which is a place we haven't won in about 4 or 5 years. Yeah, you just kind of hope there isn't a lot of letdown here. Especially because the Vikings have a 2-game homestand this week against the Ravens and next week against the Bears. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Next week, yeah boy, we'll be at the game. But I'll kind of break that down more in the preview for the Chicago week. Anyway, going back to Baltimore now. Yeah, it's not going to be an easy game, ladies and gentlemen. Especially now because I think the last time we actually played Lamar, he was still kind of figuring out his passing game and stuff like that. And, well, there is one thing that I do also want to dispel here, the fact that back in 2021, the Flores Hellfire defense held Lamar Jackson to like 3 points going into the fourth quarter or something like that. Yeah, but you also have to understand that was back when Lamar Jackson was still getting his arm going, basically, because he was still coming off of being more of a mobile, running, scrambling quarterback to now more of a pocket passer with legs. So, yeah. There's a reason why Lamar Jackson is a multiple-time MVP in like his first, 6, 7 seasons at this point? So, yeah. So, obviously, as you could tell, the primary focus this week is slowing down Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, Zay Flowers, DeAndre Hopkins, as well as like Justice Hill and that offense, basically. Because the reason why I mentioned all of those guys is because every single one of them brings a little something different. Because obviously you have Lamar Jackson, who is basically Mike Vick with his legs, but also has a cannon of an arm with weapons like Zay Flowers, who low-key is a very underrated receiver when he gets the targets, as well as the ageless wonder in DeAndre Hopkins, who is good for about a 50-yard catch or just basically a momentum-changing catch. At least 1 or 2 of those a game. And then you also have more speedy running backs like a Justice Hill or a Mitchell, who's also, last week alone, I mean, he carved up. I can't remember exactly who they played, but anyway, he still was a very formidable foe. We'll just leave it at that. So yeah, that offense is going to be priority number 1. Yeah, so Flores, I mean, I love what you did last week there, but the thing is, I think the formula is going to have to change just a little bit more here, because with those running mobile type of quarterbacks who can, easily take it to the edges and just haul ass up the field, you want to try to force them to beat you with the arm. The more you have to beat us with your quarterback versus him just scrambling for 150 yards and like 3 touchdowns, the more likely you are to win. If you can make him one-dimensional, as well as if Derrick Henry holds on to the ball, because I know that was kind of a bugaboo the first few weeks of the season. He has cleaned it up a lot since then. So, but yeah. That's just basically the primary focus of the team this week. Containing and slowing down Lamar Jackson and that offense. Now, on the defensive side of things, the Ravens' defense has not been great this season, but they have started picking it back up and have started getting better, basically. I mean, week in and week out over these last few weeks, they've gotten just a little bit better, a little more consistent, and, well, here we are, you know? They've won their, they basically have won their last 2 games, including a 10-day break after beating Miami down in Miami by a pretty significant margin. So, yeah, I mean, like I say, they have guys like Kyle Hamilton, which still makes me seethe, because Kwesi could have had Kyle Hamilton instead of trading back for Lewis Cine, but again, that's a different video for probably the off-season and stuff like that, as far as like drafting and all that shit's confirmed and stuff like that, because, yeah. I still don't know how I feel about Kwesi's drafting, or whoever does the drafting's drafting, so. But regardless, though, Kyle Hamilton, Malachi Starks is another young safety back there. And they just have a lot of, like, depth in there. Like, Kyle Van Noy's a long-time veteran as well. They have an all-right pass rush that has gotten better. But if you know anything about the Vikings, one week they can, neutralize some of the best pass rushes in the league. And the other weeks they make, like the bottom third look like basically Derek, basically like Jared Allen. It's crazy how, like, our offensive line works or doesn't work, or however you want to say it, so. But, yeah. So, if J.J. McCarthy can find Addison, can find Hawkinson, can find Jefferson, can find even our backup tight ends and Vanette and, oh boy, Urasek, there we go, that's the other one I was thinking of. And then, of course, is Aaron Jones going to be healthy? Is it going to be a primary dose of Jordan Mason? How do we feel about Xavier Scott? CJ, Ham is Hammer back? Like, I mean, that'd be kind of a nice thing, too. But, yeah, I mean, like I say, this is a completely different animal this week. Because while their defense hasn't been great, it has improved, but there's still things you can, pick apart if you know what you're doing. But then again, this is also, J.J. McCarthy's, 4th game now? 5th game now? Give or take? So, yeah. And you're going up against a very well-coached team, basically playing hungry, playing desperate, and still could win the division. I mean, if you look at, like, Vegas odds and all that stuff, they're still the odds-on favorite to win the AFC North. Which, how many times have you seen a 1-5, 2-5 team still be favored to win their division? But yeah, anyway, regardless, with all that said, though, to kind of wrap this Yap show up here, massive game at home against a desperate Ravens team that's also looking to save their season against a mobile quarterback who is a multiple-time MVP who has more than enough weapons to both beat you in the air and beat you on the ground. So this is going to have to be a primarily defensive-oriented game here. Try to slow them down. Try to, I don't know how much you're necessarily going to, fool them or shock them or whatever you want to say. Because these are the type of quarterbacks that if you blitz the ever-loving hell out of them, they can just dump it down, hit around the edge, and before you know it, they have about a 30, 40-yard gain or big chunk play down the field, a la like the Philadelphia Eagles a few weeks ago. Yeah, it's going to be tough. But we hopefully as J.J. McCarthy said, should be ready, and don't let this turn into an emotional letdown. After coming off of a massive win in Detroit by multiple, we're basically an 8.5, 9-point underdog, to then being at home, being in front of the home crowd against another team that I'd argue is even more desperate. So, all I know is tomorrow at noon is going to be a fun one. And for the love of God, guys, show up, show out, get the thing done. So, yeah, I think that'll pretty much wrap up this video. So, until we meet again, this is Jacob. Have a good one.